Welcome everyone. Welcome all of my joyful creators and all of my Longmire friends. This is Funday Monday, section 23 of the Longmire Blanket. My name is Cynthia with Cynthia's Joyful Creations, and I am extremely, I know I always say this, excited about today's episode. Today's episode will be the beginning of a pictograph that I think will just really bring our Longmire Blanket the greatest character yet. So in order to get started, this pictograph is going to take at least 6 to 8 colors. But for today's section only, we're only going to use one color. That color was chosen by Miss Roseanne, and it is the color number 12. So let me grab my little card here, and color number 12 on my chart is going to be purple. And I'm extremely excited about this because I really wanted some more purple in my particular blanket, but I never at any point was choosing colors, except for last week. I did get to have a part in putting purple into our little arrow design, but normally the dice in the beginning, and now my friends are picking colors. So I am very, very happy that we get to add a little bit more purple into the blanket. So to get started, you're going to need just a little bit of purple. I have cut off here about 4 yards of this color. So whatever your color number 12 is, you need to cut about 4 yards of it, which is about 144 inches. So however it's easy for you to measure that out, go ahead and pause the video, measure that out, and then come back and join us. I'm going to go ahead and start getting mine on my darning needle here. And we have quite a lot, so you can give yourself a long, doubled up piece. I was going to say tail, but however you want to call it. I'm going to fold mine almost in half to make it easier to do the cross stitching. And I'm only going to leave maybe about 1 yard of it where it's not doubled. And when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and dive right on in and get started. So the easiest way to measure this out and get started is we're going to come to the very last stitch here of our arrow pattern. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera a little bit so we can get ready. And I may have to adjust it again once we get our count established. I apologize, I'm trying to get the camera nice and straight here. We're going to count 31 stitches out from this last stitch that we made in our arrow pattern. So let's go ahead and start counting out. Again, we're doing 31. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kind of pulling mine down a little bit so you can see it easier. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, another Cynthia hair, sorry, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. So this is where we're going to start our pictograph that we're going to do for today, away from the arrow. Now, that's the distance over to start our first stitch. So now we need to figure out where we're going to start in comparison from the top of this piece. And we have in this piece allowed a 5-row edge before our picture starts. So we are going to just take our needle here and we're just going to follow it straight up the pattern to the very edge right there. Okay, try to make this as simple as I can. We're now going to come down 5. So, all right, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, that's our border. So now, because we're going to go in this direction, all right, I am going to come down 1 more, and that's where I'm going to start my X. So I'm going to hold that spot, and I'm going to bring my needle up underneath, and I'm going to go ahead and start pulling my yarn through. And again, this is quite a bit of yarn, so just take your time. Again, you want to make sure you leave yourself some for weaving in. All right. And then I'm just going to make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So I'm going to cross that over to begin my first X. And I got friends that are sending me videos to watch. That's what that means. All right. And then we're going to complete that X. All right, now we're going to make 4 more X's on this row to give us a total of 5 X's. So let's go ahead and work on number 2. Okay. And number 3. And we've got a good bit of experience with this, doing the arrow picture. So I'm not going into a lot of detail on this. My little tail's getting caught up back here, so let me hold that to the side. All right. And now number 4. And as soon as we finish number 5, I am going to pause the video for just a minute and go ahead and slide my work over so that what we're working on is directly under the camera instead of over to the side here. All right. And for a while, it's going to take us a minute to do each X just because we've got so much yarn to play with, but we do want to make sure that we have enough to keep up with doing this all in one piece. And number 5. So let's finish this. And I know we talked about, before you get too invested in this, I know we talked about on the last section how pretty this even looks from the back side. But I definitely recommend for this picture that we're doing that you have the X's you're making on your right side, your front side. All right, so there's our 5 X's on the top. I am again going to pause the video a minute and slide this over so that what we're working on is over here directly under the camera. All right, I'll be right back. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the next section now that I've got this smoothed over. So we're going to come from the bottom of that last X and come over 1. And we're going to make an X basically on the next row below it. And this is probably going to happen from time to time until we get some of our yarn sewn out. It's going to probably tangle on us. That is not uncommon to happen. And we're going to cross over this way. And then we're going to complete that X. And then right beside this one, we're going to make 2 more. Okay. And again, you don't want to pull them too tight because you want them to be nice and fluffy, but you do want them pulled tight enough that they're not going to snag on anything when the blanket's used. And if you don't use the blanket, even just to be seen as a decoration. All right, and this is going to finish our 3rd one for this row. All right, and there we go. All right, so now we're going to move down to the next row, and this one is going to start right here in the middle. So we're going to come to this bottom part of this X, and we're going to take it over to this corner. And then we're going to come to the top here. And then come to the bottom here. And on this row, we're going to make a total of 4. So that is 1. And I do apologize for the dog drinking in the background. I could pause this, but we're just going to keep going. So it is what it is. My current condition has me not working in the studio, but working in the living room. So therefore we have a little bit more dog interaction. So we'll just say they're sending some doggy kisses in this session. All right, that's 2. And this is number 3. And this will be number 4. And as you can tell, I'm always making sure that my yarn is over the needle so that it doesn't get caught and create a knot. And I'll show you what I mean. For example, if I were to continue pulling it up here, it's in the center of my yarn, so it would create a knot. So I have to make sure I pull that over before I start pulling it through. And taking a look at the graph, which I could show you, but if you haven't seen what it's going to be from one of our Friday night movie night spoilers, then I am going to let it continue to be a surprise. So looking at the graph, we're now ready to go to the next row. And we are going to come again to the bottom part of that X there. And we are going to cross over this way. And we're going to come over this way so that the X that we're making right now is directly below the 3rd X we made on the previous row. And we're also making 4 on this row. So this is number 2. And number 3. And I can tell that my yarn is starting to get caught up to the tail, what I call the tail. And I'll show you what I mean. See how the tail is very close. So let's go ahead and pull our yarn to shorten that tail. So now that tail's here and I've got all this to work with. All right, and we're going to finish up number 3, and then this is the 4th X for this row. Okay. All right. And let me take a quick look at my graph that I've drawn to make sure I'm in the right place. So we've done 1, 2. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we're going to do this kind of repeat of these 4 stitches starting under the 3rd and 4th one. We're going to do this 2 more times. So there's number 1. And of course, this is number 2. And number 3. And number 4. And when we complete this, we're going to do this pattern of 4, 1 for one more row. And then our little pattern will change up a little bit. All right. So that's what we got going on. I know it's really hard to tell what that is at the moment, but I promise as we continue on, it'll come into some clarity. Maybe not even today, but it will. All right, so we're going to do that one more time. So here's number 1. And number 2. And the third X. And I apologize for all the doggy noises. They hear me talking, but I'm not talking to them. So sometimes they get a little jealous. And if one thinks I'm talking to the other, even if I'm not, then the other one has to check it out and make sure that they're not getting something they're not, even if it's just mommy and daddy, I love yous, or pretty girls. I know that probably makes this video a little unprofessional, and I do apologize. All right, so here is the 4th X for this row. Now we're going to change that pattern up just a little bit, but let's continue to look at what we have. All right. So, looking at our graph, I'm just going to make sure we're on the right row. 2, 3, 4. And we are. So now we're going to do just kind of like we did before, coming right here under this X and making an X, and we're going to make one here, but we're only going to do a row of 3 instead of 4. So the exact same thing that we've been doing, but instead of a row of 4 X's, we're going to make a row of 3 X's. And there's 1. And here's 2. If the dogs keep on, I'll just have to stop and try and complete this maybe tomorrow. I do apologize that they seem to not be able to settle. And 3. All right. Now, on this next row, we're going to do the exact same thing we did on the last row. We're going to make a row of 3 X's, and we're going to start right underneath this one. So we'll do 1, 2, and 3 one more time, and then we'll change the pattern up again. So let's do a row of 3 X's coming up underneath the second X there, or the middle X at this point, since it was only a row of 3. And I apologize, now Daddy's walking into the room, so they've got to have their attention. Let me just pause the video a minute. Okay, hopefully everybody is settled and happy. So let's see if we can complete this. And again, I do apologize for the unprofessional part of this video. And once again, we're making a row of 3 X's. And there's 2. And we're going to make 1 more. All right, so now the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let me make sure I got that right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11. Yes, the next 11 rows are going to be done the same way I'm fixing to do this next row. So we'll do 1, and then I'll pause the video and you'll do the next 10 rows yourself. But just like we have been, we're going to come under the second X, and in this case we can call it the middle X, and we are going to make a row of 2s, and we're going to do that a total of 11 times. All right, and here's the second X. It looks like that. So I'm going to make 1 more row with you, and then I'll let you make the next 9 by yourself. So here we go. And at this point, it doesn't matter how you go through the rows. There's only 2 X's per row. So you go from whichever direction you want to. I just try to stay as close as I can to where I came out with the last stitch, just so it does still look a little nice and uniformed on the back side, as you can see here. Okay. And then here is the second X. And we'll complete it. And that's all you're going to do 9 more times. So go ahead and pause the video and make 9 more rows of just 2 X's, and I'll meet back up with you. So after you have your 11 rows of 2 X's in each row, we're going to start now kind of curving back this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 more X's, kind of just like we did here, except we're going to add a third one on. So the first 2 X's of this row are going to match the X's from the previous rows. And we're technically going to do 2 rows of 3 and 4 rows of 4. And I'll continue to work with you to show you how to line those up. So this is our second one. And now our third one. And for this next row of 3, well, as soon as I finish this one, we are going to come out 1. I'm going to come to the bottom of it. And we're going to go back this way to make our row of 3. And then here's our third one. All right, so now we're going to do 4 rows of 4, and I'm going to kind of show you or tell you or walk you through how to do them, and then I'm going to get you to pause the video and do them real quick on your own because they're the same as what we did up here. And to do them, we're going to come to the middle X to start our first one. And then this first X here, or the last X of the row, however you want to look at it, for our second one. And then we're going to add 2 more to this row. So you will add a third and a fourth one. When you get those 2 made, you'll then do your first and second one under those 2, and then your third and your fourth. Then on the next row, you'll do your first 2 under these last 2 and add 2. And then for the fourth row, you'll do your first two. Under those two, you add and add two. So when you get there, when you finish this row and you do 3 more rows of 4, then I will meet back up with you. So when you have completed those 4 rows of 4, we're going to come down and we're going to create a long row across. We're going to do 11 X's. We're going to do 3, and then in the next 5, we're actually going to work 2 rows together and then come back up to this row here and finish off with 3. I'll show you what I mean. So let's go to our last 2 here, and that's where we're going to start our first 2 for our row of 11. Excuse me. And that's 2. And we're going to work 1 more for 3 before we start kind of working 2 rows together. All right, so let's work our 4th one here. And after we've worked our 4th one there, we're going to come down and work 1 on this row. And I did it this way so that, oops, pull that a little tight. Let's fluff that stitch up a little bit. There we go. So when I come back across to make the last part of that X, I'm down in this bottom corner. All right. And then I'm just going to skip right over to the next hole here to make the second one for this row. And then I'm going to come right on top of it and make the 5th one for this row. And I lost my yarn. And since I've lost my yarn, I'm going to go ahead. Clearly, I thought I would have had plenty of yarn to make this as one piece, and I don't. I'm just at the halfway point. But I will show you how I will join it so that you can't even tell it's been joined. So go ahead and pause this, measure out your additional 4 yards, and I'll meet back up with you. So after you have your yarn cut, let me show you. We're going to do what's called the magic knot, so you can't even tell. So I'm just going to take this piece here, and I'm just going to simply tie it on like that, give it a nice tug. Then I'm going to take this piece and tie it onto this one and give it a nice tug, and then it looks like that. But I'm going to pull, and when I do, it comes together like that. It's nice and solid. You can see how it's stretching. And then you just trim off those little tails as closely as you can. And that's it. And yes, there's a little knot there, but you won't be able to really feel it once it's in the work. All right, so now let's come get our nice long tail again and get it back on our hook. And then we will pick up right where we left off. And we will complete that X. All right. And then we're going to make number 6 for this row. All right, and then we're going to come do this one on the bottom for number 3. All right, and that completes number 3 on that row. And now we're going to do number 4. All right, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 7 on this row. All right, and now number 8. And then number 5 on this row, and this will be the last X on this row. All right, now we're coming back up to this row, and we're going to do number 9, and we're going to do 3 more so that we have a total of 11 X's on this row. It looks like I caught our tail, and I did. our little tail for weaving. Okay, that's number 9. My blanket's getting heavy. Trying to keep it on here for you. And we got 2 more to go for this row. And then we'll start completing our circle, so to speak, all the way back up. All right. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is number 10. And number 11. And this is the last X for this row. Yeah, I knew something didn't feel right. Okay. All right. All right. Try and keep the blanket up here for you. Okay. I'm going to pause and see if I can slide this down a little bit. I got this a little centered more for you now. All right, so I'm going to work this next row with you, and then I am going to let you work a bit with yourself off camera, because we're just literally going to repeat this pattern here. So for example, see how this 4, it started over the last 2, so we'll do like 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next row of 4 will come over those last 2 and then complete 3, 4. And we're going to keep doing that with the 4 rows of 4, the 2 rows of 3, and then these 11 rows of 2s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let me work one more row with you to get you started, and then I will have you finish up, and then we'll come back and finish closing in the circle together. Sorry, I hit the camera there. And see how we're making the first 2. Oh, create a little knot in my yarn, and that happens when you have an excessive amount sometimes, but it's real easy to get out. The first 2 of every row will always go over the last 2 of the previous row. Okay. And there's 1. And 2. And this just happens when you have that excessive amount of yarn. It just kind of tangles together. Everyone's familiar with that. You can see my little tail sticking out there, so it kind of got in the middle of all that. And I'm going ahead and leaving this on camera because when it happens to you, I don't want you to get frustrated because you've seen it happen to me a couple times actually now. This is the first time it's taken a minute to get it out, and I might tighten down my tail length a little bit once I get this through. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, let's pull this through and let's see how much room I have between my tail length. Well, I don't really have a whole lot. That's really all I have between my tail and the yarn, so I just need to pull it a little bit slower, take a little bit more patience with pulling it through. All right, and this completes number 2, and here's number 3. The blanket's so heavy it's trying to continuously slide on me. All right, and I think we got that loop together, and we did, so let's just unloop it, and I think I actually looped it twice, so let's make some corrections before we end up with a hot mess. Okay, so this needs to come through here. And this through here. And then that through there. There we go. All right. And that completes number 3 for this row. And so we have one more for this row, and that will make 4. So this is just not my night. I just realized that my big part of my yarn took a little bit of a dip in my tea. So let me clean this up, and I would cut all this out, but you know what? I'm just going to let you see imperfection in the making, because things happen, and they can just as easily happen to you, and I don't want you to get frustrated. All right. And this is definitely the most unprofessional video I've made, so I'm going to let you have the bloopers and all tonight. No editing. All right, so there's 4. So as you can see on this line, we have 4. We're going to continue to do the same thing. We're going to do another row of 4, starting with our first 2 above these last 2. We're going to do the same thing with this set of 4 and this set of 4. Then if you'll notice the set of 3, It also will start over the last two and have one hanging over. And then we're going to do the same thing with this set of 3. Start over the last two with one hanging over. And then we're going to do 11 rows of 2s, and they're going to line up with these 2 right here. So you're literally going to follow this same pattern all the way up on this side. And when you get there, I will meet up with you and we'll close our circle in. All right, so we have completed this part of the pattern so that it matches all the way around. And we're now back at this part here where we're going to start closing in this gap right here. And we're actually going to continue repeating the same pattern, but I'm going to do it with you. We've got our 11 rows of 2s. So now we're going to start with our 3, 3, and our 4 rows of 4. And then at that point, we're going to fill in this gap of this long row, just like we did down here. So let's go ahead and get started together. So we're going to come right here and start our first row of 3. And here's our second X. And then our third X. And this will complete our first row of 3. Okay. And now our second row of 3. Here is our first X. And our second X. And our third X. I'm going to pull my tail out some because it was getting close. So it gives me a little bit more to play with here. And this completes our second row of 3. So now we're going to do our rows of 4. And here's our first X. And our second X. third. And our fourth. And so this completes our first row of 4 X's. And now we're going to start our second one. And there's our first X. And our second X. And our third. And now our fourth. And this completes row 2 of our rows of 4 X's. So now we're going to start our third row. And that's 1. Two. Three. And working on the fourth one. And this completes our third row of 4 X's. So we have 1 more left to go. And 1. 2. We're almost finished. And if you haven't been able to tell from this kind of circle that we've made, I will go ahead and let you in that we are creating a dream catcher. And that's the second one. And now the third X. And now our fourth X. And this completes the rotation of our circle. We just now have to finish closing it in. And if you look down here, we had that big long row. We have 3 over here, and we have to have 11 total. So we're going to come right above our 2 X's like we normally would. And we've got 1. We're actually going to do 9 because we've already got 3. And 9 and 3 make 11. I'm sorry, we're going to do 8 because 8 and 3 make 11. So 1, 2, 'almost there, and 3, and 4, it's gonna look, this looks a little funny to me, so I'm gonna fluff it up. There, that looks a lot better. All right, finishing up 4. And we got 4 more to go. And here's 5. And 6. And 7. And we have one final one, 8 to go. And we will have finished the top part of the body of our dream catcher. And there we go. There is the top part of our dream catcher. All right. So this is going to complete our section. All you need to do now is go and weave in all of your ends on the back side. We had a little bit of yarn left over. We probably had about a yard. So in the end, we probably only needed about 7 yards of yarn. But there you go. Well, thank you for joining me for this segment of Funday Monday. I hope you've had fun. I look forward to meeting with you next time as we continue to work on our dream catcher. Take care, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, and make your own joyful creations.